I had not the faintest idea how to start my own website or build a brand. So I had to learn.
People sometimes they think that they see all need the data inside Amazon, but it's not true.
I knew what I was trying to achieve, a suite of products under this one brand to solve problems for a particular group of people.
Welcome to Dr. Amazon Podcast, the emergency support channel for FBA private label sellers. We invite top Amazon experts to share the most efficient tips and tricks for your businesses. My name is Vitaly Hizhniak and I am the CGO of Profit Whales. And let's get started.
Who classic millennial entrepreneurs are? They start business from a laptop, travel a lot, and choose an easygoing life. Today we're going to chat with an almost classic millennial, but with a slight difference. He grew international seven-figure brand and achieved the profitable exit after 3 years. What is the secret of success? Let's ask Ben Leonard. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Dr. Amazon podcast. Today we are talking about building, scaling and selling brands and businesses with the real cool man that have got this successful journey. And there is a Ben Leonard, e-commerce consultant, entrepreneur, speaker and co-founder of Ecom Brokers. Hey Ben, nice to meet you.
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. That is a pleasure for us. We have a confused situation that we have like two boats with Vitaly during this week on fighting who should get you on the podcast. And finally, we got you on the Dr. Amazon. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks.
Ben, we starting with like typical question is your success story. Yeah. But I think that we will cover these questions during our podcast, like the whole, because that will be, I guess, as the main topic on starting the business, building the brands, and selling this brand. So could you please tell me, you're one of the main representatives of like millennials. And did you get a chance to start like maybe before you start your personal brands? Did you have a job?
Yeah, sure. My background before I got into e-commerce was not at all in business. My job I was an environmental consultant. I studied zoology and ecology at university. And so my job, I come from a town in Scotland, which is famous for the oil industry. And my job was actually to advise oil companies on how to stay inside of the environmental regulations and not break them, and to help them to get a bit greener. Which was completely different to e-commerce. So yeah, I did have a job.
That is great. And I knew that a lot of like people right now, they have some concerns about the e-commerce, like the general. Some people there think that it is easy to get started. It's so easy to start with the laptop sitting somewhere on the ballet, for example, and to launch your products. Yeah, it's like in a few clicks. But other people, they thinking that it's too hard to do. So what do you think about that? How did you start your own story with the e-commerce brand? Yeah, and maybe do you remember your main concerns about that?
Yeah, sure. So you're right. A lot of people get into e-commerce because they have some kind of belief that they're going to live the laptop lifestyle. I don't think that exists. And it's certainly not why I got into e-commerce. I stumbled into e-commerce because I got really ill. I got really sick with a heart problem. And I had to stop doing my fitness hobbies for about 9 months whilst I got better. So no more weightlifting, no more CrossFit, no more boxing. I'm fine now, but I had to take a break and I needed something to fill my time. And I decided to create a brand of fitness products. And at that time, I had never heard about selling on Amazon. I had not the faintest idea how to start my own website or build a brand. So I had to learn. But I didn't get into it because I thought that I could sit on a beach in Bali and sell stuff on the internet. I got into it because I needed something to do. It was just a project.
Mm-hmm. And I guess one of the like success points here is your product that you have choose, yeah. And I guess like the category, yeah, the niche that you start working with. So you do have some experience in sports, then you got a post about that and launch your own brand in this niche, but without like niche, I mean the product, right?
Yeah.
So how did you start it?
Yeah, so what I advise people to do is to start when you're getting started in e-commerce, create a brand around something that you're passionate in. And I am still passionate in fitness training and sports. So I did a lot of CrossFit, boxing, weightlifting at the time. And so I created products that I needed myself because I understood what the customer wanted and the problems that they needed to solve. So I created a suite of products, a group of products to solve related problems and to be a brand for that type of person. And when you do that, you better understand the needs of the customers. And so you can build a brand that meets those needs.
I really like the idea that you right now are saying that you start doing a brand, yeah, on the beginning. Because right now, a lot of people, they start selling products and then they try to create a brand around them, yeah. Just to add some of these. So how did you start, for example? Maybe you have some plans about the marketing on the long term for these products, yeah? Because you got this post for 9 months and you start taking part in the e-commerce with all these products. Did you get any like ideas, like the final result that you would like to achieve, for example, in 1 year?
Yes and no. So when I started, I started as a hobby and I hoped that I would earn myself some extra pocket money. And I was just going to see where it went. It turns out I was very good and I ended up quitting my job and I grew the business to mid 7 figures. But so I didn't have an end game in sight in terms of that, but I did have an idea that it wasn't going to be successful if I just sold stuff. Like I couldn't just sell random products. It needed to make sense and it needed to make sense to my customer. And luckily that customer was me. So I knew that I wanted to create a brand from the start. And of course you can't, unless you have a lot of money, and I didn't, you can't just launch a brand from the start because you'll probably be starting with 1, maybe 2 products. But I knew that, so the brand was called Beast Gear. And so the first product was a skipping rope or a jump rope for Americans. And it was called the Beast Rope. And as the brand developed, most of the products in the Beast Gear brand were called the Beast something. So like the weightlifting sleeves were the Beast sleeves. The barbell grips were called Beast grips. You get the idea, right? So from that point of view, I knew what I was trying to achieve, a suite of products under this one brand to solve problems for a particular group of people.
That's great. And I think that these approaches help you to be unique in this niche. I mean, in the case of the keywords, in the case of your listings and all this stuff, because people start searching, I guess, more and more. You could get a volume, of searching exactly your keywords. That is somehow it's like your brand keywords, That includes your main keywords from your brand.
And that's right.
So there is like one of the approaches that you have added into the marketing, maybe something more in the case of marketing as the branding, maybe the marketing as maybe your own website. What were your next steps on growing your brand?
So there was, I guess, there were several things, but two ways that the business scaled. One way was obviously adding related products. So after somebody has bought one of my products, it's not particularly likely that they're going to buy it again unless they need another one or they want to buy a gift or the product reaches the end of its natural lifespan. But typically that's a long time because they were quality products. So I needed to launch more products for the same person to buy more stuff. So that was method 1. Method 2 was more marketplaces. So I launched in the UK and then it was a case of, right, let's go across Europe. So France, Germany, Italy, Spain. Now you can sell in the Netherlands and Sweden. I had customers from Poland and the Czech Republic as well buying from Amazon Germany. Then I launched in the Middle East, so Amazon United Arab Emirates. I launched in Australia. Although the last two, Middle East and Australia, I only launched briefly before I sold the business, but still, nonetheless, it was those two things of more products for the same person and find more people in more countries is how I scaled the business.
That's great. I like the idea with like diversity, yeah, because there's somehow that you could increase your sales and control and to see what exactly you should improve and to do. And that is great. And if we speak about your like main approach, when did you get this like main ring bell when you understand that it's not your hobby, yeah, that is somehow became the main business? What was this like bell for you?
Yeah, it was funny. I remember when I launched at the start. I started the business. I sold my first product to a stranger on the internet in June 2016. And I remember whilst I was launching the first product, I said to my girlfriend, who's now my wife, I explained to her that for a little while, quite a few of the sales were going to come from my friends and family to help get the business going, right? And every day I would look at my phone or I'd look at the computer and I would say, oh, I sold 6 skipping ropes today. I sold 7 skipping ropes today. And every day she'd say, and how many of those were from friends and how many were real? And I would say, half of them were from friends. And I remember I got to the day where I said to her, I sold 15 skipping ropes today. And she said, and how many were from friends? And I said, 0. And I knew then that I was onto something. So that was, 2016. I quit my job in mid 2018, but really I could have quit 6 months earlier, maybe even a year earlier. The reason I didn't was I was quite risk averse. And at that point, it was still sustainable. I was still able to run the business in my spare time. And take my income from my job. So I didn't have to take any money out of the business, right? I wanted to not take any money out of the business for as long as possible, which is why I didn't quit my job until mid 2018.
That's great. And that helped you to like reinvest every time, and increase your inventory to launch new products.
Everything went right back into the business. Yep.
That is great. Yeah, I like this idea because right now a lot of sellers, they try to do so. I mean that you every time working with your cash flow, because it's your, I guess, like main pain point that could be when you start working with the new products to launch, with the inventory management and all this stuff. One main point that you would like to like solve is your inventory, your cash flow. Yeah. And great. But when did you get like this maybe proposal on selling your business or idea for selling your business? How did you get on it?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when I started the business, it was a hobby and I hoped it would just make me some extra income. The idea of turning that business into a valuable asset that I could sell did not occur to me. And I think that's the case for most people, probably almost all people starting an e-commerce business in 2016. Because back then, very, very few e-commerce businesses were bought or sold. But in early 2019, I became aware that selling an e-commerce business was becoming more mainstream and possible. And it's even more mainstream now, obviously. And my wife was pregnant. We wanted to move house. I just turned 30. And I knew that I could take significant money off the table if I sold the business or if I started to plan to sell the business. Also, the growth of the business was crazy. It was going mad. And it was just me and a team of 3 freelancers, remote freelancers. And I had a choice. I could make plans to sell the business, or I would have to significantly invest in building a team, possibly creating an office, whether in my home country or abroad. And at that point in my life, considering what I thought I could sell the business for, I felt like the best thing was to take the money off the table and make my family financially secure. So I think February 2019, I contacted a broker.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to do the process of getting the business ready to sell. I read a book called Built to Sell by a guy called John Warrillow. It's a great book.
Yeah.
And I got in touch with this broker. And this broker was okay. They logged into my Seller Central and they pulled down some reports. And they logged into my Shopify site and they pulled down some reports. And they crunched some numbers and they valued my business basically on an average of what the market dictated at that point. But that was all they did. They didn't do any work to position my business for the best possible deal. They didn't particularly crunch the numbers very well. They actually made several mistakes that my accountant found. So I negotiated down their commission. And they didn't really help me to prepare they just introduced me to a buyer. And I'm grateful for that. That was good. But at the end of that process, I realized, and my accountant, who happens to have 20 years experience in mergers and acquisitions, her name's Allison, we realized that we actually together could do a better job of the broker. So we created our own brokerage. So instead of just being a middleman, we have me on the e-commerce side who knows how to build and scale and sell an e-commerce brand. And I'm still doing it now. I'm building new brands now. And Allison, who has 20 years experience in mergers and acquisitions, and she's an e-commerce accountant. And when you put those two things together, it means that we're perfectly positioned to help people prepare to sell and then sell and get the best possible deal, rather than just kind of like flipping a business and putting it on, slapping it on a website and listing it. So yeah, that's what happened.
Have you done any steps on preparation step for selling the business? Yeah, after you have spoke to the brokers.
Sorry, which business? Beast Gear.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so the broker that I worked with, they were okay. They introduced me to the buyer, and I'm grateful for that. But most of the work in terms of getting it prepared to sell was off my own back, and in combination with my accountant, who's now my business partner in Ecom Brokers. So that was basically getting a head start on the due diligence process. So when somebody sells a business, they're going to go through a process called due diligence, which is where the potential buyer will have a period of exclusivity during which time you can't market your business to anyone else, so that, and it's usually around 30 days, sometimes significantly less, so that they can take a really close look at everything to do with your business, literally everything. Because of course, if they're going to spend a lot of money on your business, they need to know that everything is okay. So in Ecom Brokers, we help people get a head start on that due diligence process so that their business is really neat and tidy. Because you'll see it all the time. A lot of e-commerce businesses, they have amazing Amazon listings. Their Shopify site is beautiful. Their Instagram is amazing. Their YouTube channel is incredible. But you look underneath and it is a mess. You got Google Sheets over here. You got Evernote over here. You got stuff saved on some random hard drive. It's messy. The accounts are terrible.
Yeah.
And so when due diligence happens, either the buyer says, no, thank you, we're not touching it. Or they uncover stuff that isn't great and they're going to negotiate a discount. When you get a head start on that due diligence and you get your business really neat and tidy and built to sell, some great things happen. One is your business naturally scales because it's running so much smoother. It's like a well-oiled machine. It's like an engine that is looked after by the mechanic. And the other great thing is that due diligence process by the buyer is so much smoother and easier. There's nothing to worry about. It's much less intense. So the buyer is much happier and they're much more likely to give you the full value that your business is worth. And the process is going to be a lot less painful.
Yeah, that is great. And I like the idea that everything should be like organized and optimized inside your business, not only as your main like listings, Shopify website and stuff like that, but in the case of the numbers, because we do have the same mass in the case of like the PPC, because people sometimes they think that they like see all needed data inside the Amazon, but it's not true. Yeah, if you have a mess inside your campaigns, you have a mess in the case of your main indicators that you're following. So that is great. And I like the idea of like this due diligence and have people start preparing that, and absolutely sure that you should use a consulting here or auditing company that could help you to prepare everything for that, or double check everything that you have. That is that is really cool. And after you have sell like your business, how did you come back? You have mentioned that right now you are working on creating new brands, yeah, and it's so difficult to do it like right now, not in like 2016 or 17, something like that. But now, how did you start that? How did you make these moves into creating a new brand?
Sure. So I think it's always important, and we spoke a little bit about it earlier, that you build a brand around something that you're passionate about, so that you, for two reasons. One is you need to have the energy to get up in the morning and work on your business. And if you don't care about it, if it's not a topic you're interested in, you're not going to do that. But the second is you need to position your brand and yourself as an authority on that topic. So I was very interested in fitness, so I was able to position the brand as an authority on fitness. So it was very easy for me to choose my next step. We have a daughter, she's 2 years old. I spotted a gap in the market for some certain products for parents. Now, there's a lot of generic baby, child, parent brands out there. So I'm not interested in doing that. But an important lesson I learned with the first brand is that the higher the barrier to something, the better the reward on the other side. And when I started B-Skier, I was sourcing skipping ropes for a few dollars. But now that I've sold B-Skier, I have the capital to fund launching products that cost a lot more than $2. So now I'm about to launch products that I'm buying for more like $30 per unit. And not many people can do that. So it's a high barrier. But the reward on the other side of that barrier is a marketplace that's much less saturated with less competition. The second part to that is, instead of just launching a generic product off the shelf, I've worked with a top designer and I've paid about $10,000 for them to help me design this product so that it will be better than everything else. So again, it's a high barrier, but when you overcome that barrier, the landscape on the other side is a lot different. It's a little bit like, imagine there's a mountain in front of you, and you know that on the other side of that mountain is a beautiful valley full of food, lovely places. You know, imagine you're a caveman, lovely places to eat and sleep, and a wonderful landscape. You just have to overcome the mountain first, and nobody else can be bothered doing it. But if you do it, the reward on the other side is worth it. So that's the philosophy I'm taking forward to my new projects.
Now, Ben, I would be glad to know more about you personally, because you share a lot of info about the Amazon, about the e-commerce, about the mindset, how to do it correctly, and the main steps that you want to cover when you do working with the Amazon businesses. But could you please recommend to us, for example, a book or some audio, like a podcast or maybe a film that would be useful for our audience?
Sure. So I mentioned one book earlier, which was Built to Sell by John Warrillow. Another great book, it's quite new. It's called 12 Months to $1 Million by Ryan Daniel Moran. I basically followed that formula. The book came out after I sold my business, but I wish I'd written it. It's basically pretty much what I did. Now, the title of that book is a little bit corny. It's a little bit like the 4-Hour Workweek. You know, everybody's heard of the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a 4-Hour Workweek. I'm afraid it's not true, but it's still a good book. The same with 12 months to $1 million. I think it's going to be difficult to get your brand to $1 million in 12 months. It's definitely possible, but it's difficult. But nonetheless, the book basically provides the step-by-step formula to build a brand, launch it on the internet in e-commerce, and get it to 7 figures revenue. Now, obviously, revenue is a vanity number. What's really important is profit. But nonetheless, it's a great book. 12 months to $1 million.
I guess we will add this book into our description, and we'll absolutely take and control this book. And if we speak about the Amazon, what is the trends do you see for the next period of time? For example, for the next year?
Yeah, it's a really interesting space to be in because so many more sellers are coming in because they've realized that e-commerce is the place to be. We've known for some time, you and I, but now with the pandemic, everyone's thinking, I should be online more. It's going to be fascinating. We've got more and more sellers coming in. What I see happening is Amazon continuing to exploit new places. So we've just seen Amazon launch in Poland, where Allegro was the big one. Now Amazon is in there, and we'll see what happens there. And I see Amazon continuing to move further to the east and further to the south. So that is going to be interesting to watch, and I'm eager to see where they launch next.
Okay. So the main thing in the case of the diversity of the Amazon, that could be somehow that e-commerce could like run the next period of time, right?
Yeah, Amazon's going to continue to march into more countries, but I think it's also important that people remember that Amazon's not the only marketplace there.
Right.
Sell on your own website. That's very important. Build your own assets. But it's, I think it's impossible to ignore marketplaces. So if you have an opportunity to get onto another marketplace that's not Amazon, it might not be so big, but there'll be probably less competition there. So if you are living in a place where you can go onto another marketplace, definitely do that. There's lots of opportunities in South America for different marketplaces and in Central and Eastern Europe.
Okay, and the last question for today: who should be the next guest for the Dr. Amazon podcast?
Who should be the next guest? The next guest, that should be my business partner, Alison Walker. And I'm not kidding, right? I know that might sound like I'm biased, but here's the reason. A lot of so in addition to being my partner in the brokerage, right? She is an expert in accounts, and a lot of e-commerce sellers really neglect their accounts. They first of all, they try to do it themselves. And then so that's mistake number one. And then mistake number two is they hire an accountant who might be a perfectly fine accountant, but they only have experience in dealing with traditional businesses, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. They don't know about e-commerce. And later, a couple years down the line, when you want to sell your business, you're going to really regret that because your accounts are going to be not structured properly to optimize valuing your business to get a sale. So that's why I think she would be a great guest.
That is great. And I knew that you have a great story together in the case your Amazon brand that you have sell, and now you do the great moves in the case of the Ecom Brokers. So I would be glad to have her here. So
sure. Yeah, I'll happily introduce you.
Of course. Yeah. So thank you so much, Ben, for this podcast. Thank you for sharing all these tips and tricks for our audience. I hope that will absolutely help them to make all these moves and steps in the case of the e-commerce and Amazon, and to see all opportunities that they could cover and to do as soon as possible. So thank you, Ben, for that.
No, pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And that is all for today's Dr. Amazon episode. Do not miss our future arrivals with new hot topics. Press the like button, leave us a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. We will come back to you shortly.